900 The Patriot. We're talking about the case in Texas of Amy Lacey, who is a middle school principal fired from her job for suggesting that English be spoken in the classrooms if possible. That's what she said. They kind of concocted a different story, said that she had banned it from the campus, and now she's out of a job. She's suing to get her job back, and we hope that she does. On the line with us is Robert Vandervoort. He's Executive Director of Pro-English, and as I mentioned before, Pro-English is up on my website or up on my Facebook page. ProEnglish.org is the website. We have a link directly to them should you like to get involved or contribute or just get to know them a little bit better. You know, it's interesting to me, Robert, and I've got to get back to the phones here, the idea that the Army is really under assault by this regime. Not only in their numbers, but in some of the things that they're doing. For example, allowing, and I'm not, again, trying to be racist here or be critical, but allowing Sikh members of the Army to wear their traditional headdress and so on and so forth. And it can't be long before somebody's going to start pushing for language considerations there. And conformity in certain areas is really almost critical, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact of the matter is that as a nation, we've always had things that have brought us together and unified us, even though we come from all parts of the world and people spoke different languages from Europe, from Asia, but we always knew there had to be a common language spoken to bring us together. And I'm concerned that with these trends that you've just described, we're moving down a path towards balkanization, and it's going to be it could be very destructive for the country. So that's yet another reason why something that is basic and is widely supported as official English needs to get passed.
Let's go back to the phones with Ken in Livonia on the Patriot. You're on the air, Ken, with Robert Vandervoort. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's essential for our country's survival that we have one language. Since we were founded with English, it must be English. The example of what's taking place now in our country that just shows how dangerous multiculturalism can be when it comes to our languages. Look at Dearborn. Drive around East Dearborn, and a lot of times you'd be lucky to even find any signs on businesses that are in English. They're all Arabic, because here's a group of people that don't want to assimilate. In addition to that, look at what's happening in the Dearborn school systems, where in many of the high schools, now the Muslims, they can have their prayer, but if you're a Christian or someone else, you try having your prayer, and you're not going to have it. So it's just, I would say it's dangerous to have this refusal to assimilate into our American way of life.
Thanks for the call, Ken. Do you think it's actually dangerous to the culture, Bob?
Yeah, I think the caller raises some good points. I mean, we can look to the North and Canada, and of course, you know, they have a lot of friction over bilingualism in that country because you have the French-speaking Quebecois, and then you have the English-speaking Canadians and the rest of Canada. So it's certainly a source of friction. And also, if you look across the ocean to Europe, in Ukraine, this is a country that's divided over many things. But one of them is language. In the eastern part of Ukraine, they speak predominantly Russian, and in the western part, they speak predominantly Ukrainian. So this is something that can fracture a nation.
Steve in Sterling Heights, you are next on the Patriot. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically my point. Your guest just said it. My appraisal of it is if you fractionalize a language, you fractionalize the country. And I saw that happen to me in person. I was down on business in Miami a few years ago, took ill, had to go to a hospital, and no one spoke English. And they had to find someone on staff who spoke English to translate for me. I was in Miami. I was not in another country, but that's a true story, and it happened to me, and it was very eye-opening. So I think it's one of the most important things we need to do as a country is to keep our language consistent.
Okay, thanks for your call, Steve. How are the courts, Bob Vandervoort, reacting to cases like this? Because I'm sure there are going to be more. As a matter of fact, I Googled it, and that came up with, I don't know how many 100,000 hits. Now, many of them are for the same thing. But there's more and more of this springing up, is there not?
There is, and I think you're right. I think we're going to continue to see more of it because we don't have a culture that was robustly in favor of assimilation and Americanizing people. We've, since the 1960s, with the rise of political correctness and multiculturalism, we've moved away from that. Fortunately, for the most part, the courts have actually sided with English speakers and with English on the job policies. Lots of times there are government agencies like the EEOC will go after some company because they want to have English spoken in the workplace. And again, the courts have upheld that it's perfectly legal for a company to do that. Now, too often, a lot of these companies will not fight it in court and they'll just settle. But the law is on their side in these instances.
Well, if you want to do business in the world, it seems to me you better know English, because so much of it is conducted in English, is it not?
Absolutely. In fact, it's ironic that as more and more of the world is trying to learn English because they want the economic advantages of knowing English, and all of the major scientific advances are printed in English, and you just go down the list of things that globally English is used for. And it's ironic that here we are in this country moving away from emphasis on learning English.
Here's Gary in Hazel Park on the Patriot. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, gentlemen. Hey, I don't believe the left or the Democrats want a central language in the country because they like us fragmented and they like to pander to their individual constituencies, and they like it this way.
Well, I don't know if Robert wants to get involved in political.
Well, we have some Democratic supporters, but I think the caller raises a point that there's maybe not the Democrats themselves, but there's certainly a hard multiculturalist group that I think has that agenda of this is disruptive for America, and that to their minds is a good thing. I think you probably have some other folks who maybe are of more moderate persuasion of multiculturalism, and they think that this is going to somehow help immigrants, and it's a nice thing to do, and they're well intentioned, but the result is bad. So I think you probably have both of those going on, which creates this dynamic where people can get attacked just for advocating English.
Here's Randy in Detroit on the Patriot. Randy, go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Is Canada really that fractured? I mean, you mentioned Canada being fractured because of language, but actually they learn to be bilingual and they could be getting along.
Well, some of them are fluent bilingual speakers, but many of them are not, and it's not quite as fractured as Ukraine. I'll grant you that, but on the other hand,
it's actually not even as fractured as the United States, and there's only English.
Well, I know that in order to have some of the top government jobs in Canada, you have to be fluent in both languages, and a lot of people are shut out of those jobs because they only know one or the other language.
Well, Robert, I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors with Pro-English. Again, proenglish.org is the website, and it's up on my Facebook page, and you can link directly to it. We'll see how this case develops, and I'd like to ask permission to call you back as it does develop and have you on again, because I've enjoyed talking with you, and I know the audience has.
Well, great. Yeah, I'd love to be on, and just one quick note for your listeners before we head out. There is a bill pending in Michigan in the state legislature. It's HB 4372, which would make English the official language for the state of Michigan. So that's something your listeners might want to check out and see if their own state representative supports it.
Yeah, I'll get the sponsors of that bill on sometime in the near future. I appreciate the heads up.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Robert, once again.
Okay.
Great.